Dan Gilleon is about to join us momentarily. He is the attorney for the woman who alleges that she was gang raped at a party off campus at San Diego State University, and at the time was 17 years old. No findings were there to bring criminal charges against the former San Diego State University punter, Matt Araiza, or others at this point. The university has said that it found nothing to point to rape. The criminal charges have not been sought after either in this case, but a civil case remains. And in 2021, a woman who was 17 at the time claimed she was raped and reported this the day after the alleged incident occurred at a college party off campus. And the attorney for the woman is Dan Gilleon, who joins us now. Dan, thank you for the time here on OutKick. We appreciate that. What is the big misconception for what we've read and heard versus what your client maintains right now?
Well, I mean, I think what you're saying, what you've heard is Matt Araiza going around taking a victory lap for a variety of things that he seems to think is important. Like there was an audio that his agent leaked out where a prosecutor made a comment about him not being present at the time of the gang rape. He thinks that's apparently exoneration. I don't know. I listened to just now and watched an interview he gave to a local CBS station here. I believe it was yesterday. I can't make heads or tails of what's going on with him. It's, the video that I saw, the interview I saw, I mean, what I saw was a very arrogant, sexist young man who has been scripted on how to answer questions. Probably went outside the script because he said a number of things that just simply are factually untrue. But, I don't know. This is not the way normally cases in civil litigation go.
Dan Gilleon with us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Matt Araiza joined Tommy Lahren, is fearless on OutKick on Thursday. I want to get your response to this, where he says he's not settling the case and why he's not settling the case.
There's a lot of people that say, hey, listen, you could settle the civil case for about 50 grand, probably cost you a heck of a lot less than you're spending on attorney's fees at this moment and in the past. So why not just settle and make all this go away?
Like you previously said, the damage has been done. And if I was to settle, that would waive my right to countersue. So at this point, we're the heavy favorite, and continuing this any longer is going to be very damaging for them. So I'm not willing to settle.
Dan, what do you say to that?
He sounds like how old is he now? 23? I don't know. He sounds like a 21-year-old still. It's too bad. From the beginning, before anyone knew about this case, I sent an email to the Buffalo Bills, and I was just like, hey, isn't there somebody around this kid that is somewhat sophisticated that can talk to him? I was thinking maybe, I actually said, doesn't he have agents or something that can talk to him? And, maybe someone did. Maybe there's some adults that are talking to him and he's just purely, just very stubborn. I have a teenage son myself, but, he just isn't dealing with reality right now.
So investigators performed a 124-day investigation and did not charge him with anything. Why do you think they didn't charge him?
Well, for the same reason that the vast majority of these cases aren't charged. We're talking maybe 2% of all sexual assaults are ever charged in a criminal court. Most cases like this aren't even investigated. Because these are tough cases for a prosecutor to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. You have to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt, but you also have to convince 12 out of 12 jurors beyond a reasonable doubt that the person is guilty. And when you have a drunk victim, right, that's your main witness, but she says she's drunk, right there, you're going to have difficulty as a criminal prosecutor. So most of these cases don't get charged. most don't even get investigated because the detectives know that they're not going to get charged and they don't want to waste their time. So this one was unique, that the investigators spent a lot of time, a lot of money, trying to find the case that it seems like they believe existed, but, they just didn't get in their smoking gun, and Matt Araiza wouldn't talk. He asserted the Fifth Amendment and wouldn't talk. It isn't until now that he's talked, after he's had about a year or so to get scripted by his lawyers. He's willing to talk now, but they're just, I did an op-ed, by the way. I wrote an op-ed piece for the San Diego Union Tribune where I kind of laid this out. I mean, this is so commonplace that charges aren't filed. It's actually very uncommon that police even investigate these sort of cases.
So you've argued that prosecutors based their opinion that Araiza wasn't present during the rape based on a witness who was a buddy of his. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, no, it's not my opinion, or it's not the prosecutor's opinion that he wasn't there. I mean, the prosecutors don't have opinions. Prosecutors are like any other attorney, and they look at evidence and they say, what is the evidence? And for a prosecutor, they're saying, is there sufficient evidence for me to prove beyond a reasonable doubt? That's what they're looking at. In that interview, there was a young deputy district attorney talking to an even younger, very distraught victim who was crying over the fact that the charges weren't going to be filed. And, there was a passing comment where she says, I know Araiza wasn't there, or something like that. But then the attorney that worked at my office who was present said, is that based on witnesses? And she says, no, one witness. That one witness was actually never interviewed by the police or the DA. The statement that was attributed to him was actually written by a private investigator hired by Matt Araiza's defense attorney, criminal defense attorney. And she went out in July of 2022 and supposedly talked to this kid and just summarized what he supposedly said. I mean, but this investigator didn't keep a recording of that. I'm not the prosecutor, nor am I sitting there thinking, oh, I think that, this witness is going to come in and say something else. I think he probably will say the same thing that he apparently told this investigator, but that's what the prosecutor actually said. I mean, it was like right after she said, I know he wasn't there. She said, that's based on one witness. And we know who this witness is. I'm not going to identify him. It's interesting though. He's a very close friend of Matt Araiza's. And recently with all this media campaign that the Team Araiza has been conducting, I've made some comments about how he's, this kid was Matt Araiza's buddy. And recently he started changing around his Instagram and Twitter to remove all references to Matt Araiza. So he's still out there working for his buddy and trying to act like he's not biased.
Dan Gilleon, our guest. Go ahead.
By the way, that whole issue goes to whether or not Matt Araiza was there at the time of the gang rape. But what he does know this, and his lawyers do know this, but they just don't seem to talk about it very much, is that the allegation against him includes the statutory rape and the rape by intoxication for sex that he now admits that he had with my client. Initially, during a pretext call with the police, he only disclosed that oral sex. So he didn't even comment about the sexual intercourse. So he admits that he had sex with her, and he can't deny that she was 17, and he can't deny that he was 21, and he can't deny that that is a felony. So what does he do? Well, he's never really said anything until now, but prior to the DA dropping or not filing charges, they didn't drop charges. Before they just announced they aren't going to file, his attorney was going around saying, well, she said she was 18. And now he's tasked with he has to come up with a reason why he asked her why she was 18. She's always been very, very clear that no, he never asked me. I never said it. It was never an issue.
Well, and feel free, hold on one second, Dan. Feel free to refute this if you want. But this is from Dan Wetzel's story at Yahoo. Witness interviews from the party, including 2 of the girl's friends with whom she arrived, said she didn't appear to be drunk at the time. Other witnesses said the girl was telling people she was 18. Are you refuting that part of the witness's account?
Okay, so which witnesses though? So you first of all, you talked about some of her friends who said, I mean, her friends said that she was not only intoxicated, that she was inebriated. That's what her friends that were present said. Even there was a football player there that was blocking access to the house and preventing my client's friends from getting in there and helping her get out of that room. He even gave a statement to the police that she was inebriated. There's some witnesses may have said she didn't appear drunk. I don't know. The bottom line is we don't have BAC. We know what witnesses are going to say. I know that my client's going to say is that she consumed almost an entire 5th of vodka that evening. And we do have, there's, the evidence by way of the videos do show her at some point with her eyes kind of rolling back in her head, appearing inebriated. But I don't think there's any doubt that she was drunk. Now, the issue I was addressing before wasn't rape by intoxication, it was statutory rape. And those are 2 separate things. Matt Araiza admits now he admits that he had sex with my client on the side yard he says within 15 minutes of meeting her. And he's 21 at the time, she was 17. I mean, the only way he can get out of that is by coming up with a story that somehow she told him that she was 18. This is a young girl with braces on her teeth and appearing very intoxicated and appearing just young. I mean, she's just a young looking girl. And, the bottom line is he didn't ask her and she didn't tell him. And that doesn't create a defense at all. That's why he's coming up with this story.
Dan Gilleon with us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Was anything removed from social media from that night? We're in a social media age where you're going on Instagram Live, you're making posts, there's tweets. Is anything from social media helping to corroborate the story of your client?
Well, which story of my client? I mean,
or the account?
Well, okay. Well, there's nothing on social media, I mean, that I can think of. I mean, I'm sure that there was. I mean, we know that some of these guys shared videos of themselves having sex with my client on, I believe it was Instagram or Snapchat. But now we're not using social media so much. I mean, social media shows a very close connection between Matt Araiza and the person he, describes as his designated driver or chauffeur or whatever you want to call him. But, he's a second string punter on the team, and he just, saw Matt Araiza as God. But they're very close friends, and there's TikTok videos out there showing them together, traveling together. But he's been taking those posts down. So that aspect of social media be used. But, here I just think it comes down to my client's very believable. She's very real. She's humble. Her story makes sense. And I've just now been able to see that Matt Araiza, he can appear scripted and might maybe rehearsed. He's more than just a little bit arrogant and quite a bit sexist. I mean, it was pretty stunning, the stuff that he was saying, the double standard between, men having sex with a young girl without a condom within 15 minutes of meeting her, supposedly because she was talking very sexually explicit. And by the way, all girls do this, and then they're being, it's just, he's made a comment too about, he wasn't there at the party at all at the time of the gang rape, but it wasn't a gang rape. He said, this is what he said. It wasn't a gang rape. It was just group sex. Like, okay, Matt, if you weren't there, then how do you know what it was? I mean, it's pretty appalling just how how to the length they've gone to basically slut shame my client. She comes out of that room, with blood all over her, crying, in shock. These are the terms that I'm repeating that witnesses saw, saying she was raped by multiple men, goes to the police, goes to the hospital. There's bruising on her neck. There's blood in the crotch, the groin area of her costume. And yet Matt Araiza, the guy that wasn't there, has the audacity to come out and go on TV and say that was group sex. I just think that a jury is going to see right through that. And I think that the jury is going to look at my client and go, you just tell the same story over and over. From day one, it's been the same story, because she will testify about what she remembers, and she will not make up facts to fill in the gaps. And, Matt Araiza has demonstrated already to me in just a short video that he's willing just to make up facts and argue his case whenever it suits him. And it's for one purpose. He wants his job back. He wants his job back with the NFL. He doesn't care about my client who came out of that room bloodied, saying she'd been raped, had to go to the police. She didn't know who he was. This whole idea that she was making this up for money. What motive did my client have to make this up? But what motive does Matt Araiza have right now to go out there on this campaign and start slut shaming my client and basically slut shaming all the women at SDSU? His motive is very clear. He wants his job with the NFL back. He wants all the glory that comes from being a guy who kicks balls. You know what? He's 23, X 21, X 18. It doesn't really matter. It just seems like to me that some of the adults in the room on Team Araiza's side, they need to, have a kind of come to Jesus with this guy and say, Matt, you were 21, she was 17, she had braces in her mouth, you had sex without a condom within 15 minutes of meeting her, but you did nothing wrong, did you, Matt? I mean, it's just, to me, I think that a jury is going to be pretty appalled.
A jury, have you offered to settle this case on your side?
Oh yeah, so yeah. In fact, it was a discussion that Matt Araiza's attorney and I had over the phone, and we are the ones that came up with the $50,000 number. It was interesting, and I told Mr. Submergent, it repeated what my client's been saying from day one. She doesn't care about money. So I said, listen, he doesn't have a job. $50,000 is a lot to a young man who doesn't have a job. And he came back and said, well, how about 25? And I go, no, it's going to have to be 50, because otherwise he'll go around and start acting like it was just a nuisance thing. And I said, but don't worry, he can pay this off when he gets a job. So it wasn't about anything. So it was just more about like, hey, let's just resolve this case. And his attorney agreed with me. So that's what I'm saying. It's like somebody is around Matt giving him bad advice. And maybe he's just a stubborn young man and won't listen to anybody. But, he's got it in his head. Somehow he's going to end up suing me. I don't know if he really believes that, but, that's, again, just more lunacy coming out of that side of the case.
Dan, final thing, what's the timetable like moving forward from your end on this civil issue?
Well, these cases typically take, a couple of years to get to trial. And I think this case is a good example of why. We still don't even have all the records from the police in unredacted form. This is an important case, and we've got a number of witness statements from the police, but there's also a lot of them that have been completely redacted. And, we can't even take depositions until we get those statements. There's additional defendants we're going to be naming additional defendants, because now that we have the police reports were able to identify at least 2 more football players who admitted to at least having sex with her in that room. And then we also identified the football player that was blocking access to that house while the rape was going on. The big issue, and I think the big kind of the big red herring that Team Araiza has been trying to get the media to follow is whether or not he was part of the gang rape. And, my client, she told the police within a couple of days that he led her from the house into that room, and then someone shoved her down from behind. That's pretty much what we alleged in the complaint. 10 days after the incident, Matt Araiza, during a pretext call, so he's being recorded, he didn't know it. He commented that he was outside for the rest of the party and starts talking about why the party ended, and even made a comment that he thought that my clients in her group were there until the end of the party. He never ever said anything like, "Oh, by the way, I left the party early." He never said that. That's what he's saying now. It may be true that he did, and his attorneys have told me they have independent evidence beyond what he says and beyond what his buddy says, but for some reason they just won't produce it. And all I can assume is the reason is they don't have it.
And,
but,
and final clarification, the investigation, did it not say that there was no blood as she exited the room? And
No.
Is there a discrepancy there? If so, why?
I have no idea where you'd say there's no blood when she comes out of the room. There's a couple of guys have been willing to say that because they're trying to squeeze this case into some sort of group sex. But I mean, every single believable witness. Plus, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the video of her costume. It's got blood all over her groin area, and the witnesses that they've deposed. Well, there's one witness they've deposed so far, and she said there was blood. What was interesting about that particular witness is the same investigator who was hired by Araiza to interview the friend. She had in her statement that she attributed to this witness about the blood, she really downplayed the amount of blood that there was. But, at her deposition, she said, no, there was blood. It was dripping down her leg.
Was there an examination done by the investigators, I guess is the question. And what were the findings of that investigation with the rape kit?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, it's all, this is absolutely. She went to the hospital and underwent a very invasive sexual assault test, and by nurses primarily. The police officers took photographs of the injuries, but there was, female nurses that did the, very invasive exams, and it's all there. I have no idea where you're getting the evidence is there was no blood, because there was blood.
Dan Gilleon has been our guest, Gilleon Law Firm, representing Jane Doe in this case, and he's saying it's moving forward in the civil aspect of the court system. Dan, thank you for the time and the insight from your side of things as a follow-up to what we heard from Matt Araiza yesterday.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dan Gilleon there.